With that down, let's move on to this. As of the time of this live stream, when we're streaming right now, the NBA season kicks off in what, 23 minutes?
Yeah, 4:30 for Knicks Celtics.
4:30 for Knicks Celtics, and the Lakers in Minnesota play late. It's the beginning of the NBA season, everybody.
It's all beginning.
All starts here. And, a lot of people in my house are very excited about that. So we thought this would be a good time for us to take stock of where the NBA is right now and give you guys the definitive top 10 power rankings of the NBA going into the season, ending off with who the prohibitive favorite will be to win the NBA title this year. Now, I'm not expecting to see a lot of Chicago Bulls on this list, probably. But anyway, Ryan,
Yep.
let's throw it over to you.
Okay.
What are our top 10 NBA teams going in to the season starting tonight?
All right. Coming in at number 10, we have the Indiana Pacers.
Really? You got them in the top
I think
10?
they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They got derailed by health. Halliburton got hurt in the playoffs. But last year, they had the number one offense in the league, 123 points a game, the most since 1983 with the Nuggets. They brought back everybody they had. They re-signed Pascal Siakam, Obi Toppin's back. As long as Halliburton can run the show, I see them putting up big numbers. Their defense is a question, but I do think they can keep pace with other teams and outscore them like they did last year. So I see them making a playoff run. I don't know if they'll go as far as Eastern Conference Finals again, but I do think they're going to make the playoffs and be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the East.
All right. That's a surprise. I didn't think you'd have them up there in the top 10. That's a nice one. All right. Who do you got at number 9?
All right, number 9, I got the Milwaukee Bucks. Year 2 with Giannis and Dame. Doc Rivers, a full season now. They added some depth with Gary Trent, Taurean Prince in the guard area. They still have Brook Lopez. Their defense is always going to be a question with only basically Giannis and Lopez guarding the paint. Damian Lillard is not a defender. Gary Trent is not a defender. Chris Middleton can defend, but he's had injuries. He had 2 ankle surgeries in the offseason. He's actually going to miss the opener tomorrow, so that's the question.
Seems like their whole fate of the Bucks always seems to ride on him, because you got the Greek Freak and all that kind of stuff, but it always seems to come down to him. If he's healthy, playing great, it almost seems like the sky's the limit.
He's their main wing defender. He's a 3-point shooter. He can pull up and shoot off the dribble, so he's like a security blanket for Giannis. All that stuff. But he's getting up there in age. Actually, the whole team is getting up there in age. That's part of the problem. Dame and him, even Giannis is 30 now, I think, or 31. So he's getting up there. Dame is in his 30s. So health is going to be a question. We'll have to see how they work together with a full season with Doc. But obviously, Giannis is one of the best players in the world. Damian Lillard is one of the best players in the world. So they have those two to do it, but we'll see how their health is and how they match up against all the other teams in the East.
All right, I honestly would have thought you would have had the Bucks a little bit higher, but okay, they got them at number 9. Who's at number 8?
Number 8, I got the Phoenix Suns. So,
wow.
A lot of these teams are going to be health dependent, obviously, but in the offseason, they fired their coach. They got rid of Frank Vogel. I won't say he's a scapegoat, but I don't think he did a great job coaching them. They brought in Mike Budenholzer, the old Bucks coach, who basically utilizes every team he's been on and made the playoffs. The Hawks, the Bucks. The playoff success is a question, but he's always utilized his talent in the regular season.
He's gotten his team to overperform.
Yeah, overperform. They have 3 really good players, obviously. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Health is always a question with those guys, too. Durant is getting up there in age. Booker has been a little bit better with his injury history, but Bradley Beal always kind of has injuries, too. They did some offseason signings. They got Tyus Jones at point guard, Mason Plumlee at center. So they have some depth. Last year, they didn't really have any depth. So they basically relied on the 3 guys, and if any of them were out, then they suffered. We'll see how it goes with the health. If those 3 guys are clicking, there's no really way to stop them. They can shoot it from anywhere. Devin Booker had a really good Olympics, especially his defense. I think he can step it up this year and be better than last year. But it's really health and how they gel with the coaching staff and these new additions. I think they're going to be in the playoff hunt, obviously.
I always worry about Devin Booker because, some nights you watch him and you're thinking this guy is a top 5 NBA player. But the problem is sometimes I feel like I watch him lose as many games for the Suns as he wins for them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and then with Durant, the age is now starting to get up there. That'll be interesting. All right.
Yep.
That was number 8.
Yep.
Who do you got number 7?
7, I had them higher, but they already have injuries. So the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
So Embiid is out already. Paul George is out already. Obviously, Paul George is a great player, but he has injury history ever since basically the Pacers.
Not
and
as
the
bad as
Clippers.
Kawhi.
For sure. Not as bad as Kawhi. They re-signed Tyrese Maxey. They have a great core. It's just, can they play? I think Embiid already talked about not playing back-to-backs at all this season, and it just started, so that's not a great sign. But they just have to be healthy going into the playoffs. Paul George is a great defender, can score. Basically, I wouldn't say he's the second option. I think Maxey's probably the second option, with Embiid being number 1, obviously. So if they can gel together and play, I think they can make a far run in the East, but can they have the time to play together the whole season? If Embiid's not playing back-to-backs, George has injury problems, are they going to be able to gel and mesh and come together for the team?
And the East is going to be rough this year. The East is going to be a tough place. All right. That's number 7. Who do you got number 6?
6, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Obviously, they traded Cat to New York.
Which was a shock.
Yeah.
To me, that was an like you had this rising team, right? That seems like this could be like the team for the next couple of years. And then Cat got traded. So that was kind of surprising to me.
I think, I mean, I'm not, I think a lot of people think the issue was the salary cap. He was making a ton of money. He had a couple of years left, and they needed some depth. And I think Towns is good. He's a really good offensive player. His defense is questionable. He also maybe takes the worst fouls ever in the NBA. Like, he fouls guys where he shouldn't be. He's fouling out of games in the playoffs. But they did trade him for DiVincenzo and Randall. DiVincenzo really showed up in the playoffs last year for the Knicks, making tons of threes, defense, bringing the ball up the court. Randall, he was injured in the playoffs, but he puts up big numbers. Defense is okay. I think the trade was more for depth and salary cap relief,
Right.
than a straight up talent trade. But the big thing is Edwards. In the playoffs, he showed up. He was one of the most exciting players, putting up big numbers. I think he can make another leap and be into the MVP conversation. And now that Cat's gone, the Timberwolves are basically his team. There is nobody there that was, kind of a running mate. He's basically the main guy now. I think they have the weapons. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. I think they can do it again. I don't see a reason why.
Now we get into the top 5.
Yep.
So who do you got on the 5 spot?
Top 5, the Dallas Mavericks. So they made it to the NBA Finals last year. Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington.
They've added Klay Thompson this year.
The trade in the midseason to get Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington basically changed their whole season. Their defense improved. Kyrie and Luka did what they do, score points and break ankles. So they pretty much did what they needed to do, got to the finals, then they got stomped by the Celtics, basically. They won one game, but the Celtics pretty much beat them easily. They added Klay Thompson, which helps their three-point shooting. Hopefully his defense can kind of revert back to what he used to be able to do. I don't think he'll be called on to do as much offensively, basically kind of stay in the corner, hit those threes, which was a problem for Dallas in the playoffs. They weren't able to hit their threes. So Luka's always MVP candidate. Kyrie is good when he plays. And in Dallas, he's been really good. So I don't see why they wouldn't have a chance to go back to the Western Finals.
All right. Who do you got number 4?
Number 4, the Laker killing team, the Denver Nuggets. Jokic, pretty much the best player in the world still. I think last year in the playoffs, they were tired. They basically looked like they were burnt out. They beat the Lakers. I mean, we won one game, but we moral victory, won one game finally. But basically, they ran against the Wolves. The Wolves were built to beat the Nuggets. They have two big guys. The GM of the Wolves basically came from the Nuggets, so he knew what to do. That was a
hell of a series. That was like, wasn't it 3-0?
Yeah.
And then went 3-3, and then it came down to games. That was a hell of a series.
I just think they're burnt out. I think running to the finals the year before, Murray was injured in the playoffs. Without him, it's really hard for them to get back to the finals, I think. So hopefully Murray can be healthy. They just re-signed Aaron Gordon to a long contract. They lost KCP in the offseason, which is a big loss. The guard, defensive, three-point specialist. But if Jokic is healthy, they're going to make the playoffs no matter what. It's just, can the supporting cast do enough, and can Murray play for them to get back to the Western Finals and hopefully the finals? They're always going to be dangerous with Jokic. I've never seen a guy play like that. I've never seen a guy be able to just like twirl around and flip up any shot where I'm like, there's no way it's going in and it's a swish. 3-pointers. It's ludicrous how good he is.
You watch him on TV, and I hear some people play, because I get it. He's like an awkward, big looking whatever, and you think that's an NBA MVP.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you watch him on if you really watch him on TV, you will be astonished. I've got to see him play live 3 times. This guy has every tool in the book. Like I remember I said this when people got mad at me. I said, he's a better version of Shaq. And people would look at me and say, you're nuts. I say, no. I'm not saying he can do everything better than Shaq. Like Shaq could control like that space within a 9-foot perimeter under the basket. I mean, he owned that. No one will ever be that dominant. But the Joker can do that as well, just not as good as Shaq did. But he does everything else better than Shaq did. This guy can shoot threes. Like without it looking funny. Like he'll put up threes. He can make spin moves to the basket. He's an incredible defender. He is an absolute game changer.
I'm hyperbole. He's top 3 passer I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's
he's
the
not
other
a guard.
thing. He's one of the best passers in the world.
He's great. It's just funny to me that basketball's not even his favorite thing. He likes horse racing back home.
Yeah.
So it's like this is my hobby is just playing basketball. But yeah, I think they can make a deep run as long as Murray can stay healthy. So.
All right, so that's number 4.
Yep.
What do you got at number 3?
Number 3, I got the New York Knicks. They made
elevate them up to number 3.
I think last year in the playoffs, I mean, Brunson got hurt, a lot of other guys got hurt, but they got Mikal Bridges, they got Karl Anthony Towns. They have so many weapons. They have a great defense. I do worry about their coach, Thibodeau. He tends to run his players into the ground. Like Josh Hart was playing 48 minutes a game, so he's gonna play guys. They're gonna get plenty of minutes. But I think with their wing depth and defense, their shooting, Towns is now a stretch 5. They can run pick and roll with Brunson. They have a lot of weapons now. Can they stay healthy? Brunson's a guard. He plays crazy. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I do think they can make a run as long as they can. Health is the biggest thing, but with their new additions, they did lose DiVincenzo, but the guys that they got now, I think they can make a run, and they're probably going to battle the Celtics for the Eastern Finals.
All right. So let's get into the top 2 then. Who's your number 2?
I got the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they were number 1 in the West last year. All they did was get better. They got Alex Caruso, traded away Giddey for him. They signed Hartenstein from the Knicks. So they basically shored up their defense and their rebounding issues and some paint defense. Chet plays center. He's a really good defensive player. I expect Chet to be better this year too. They have an MVP favorite in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Offensive weapon. He's really fun to watch. They also have a ton of first-round picks still. They're a young team, but they can go make moves with these picks. Like the Clippers owe them still for the Paul George trade and some other stuff. So I don't see why they wouldn't be number 1 in the West again with a huge opportunity to even be better with the players that they have. So yeah, I see them being number 1 in the West.
All right, that only leaves one team.
And it hurts me. It hurts me to
for
say
the
it.
number 1 spot. It was clearly the LA Clippers.
Yeah. The Boston Celtics, last year's champions.
You just made the list!
Basically the same team from last year. The biggest question, obviously, is going to be Porzingis' health. He's out until probably December, January from his surgery from the offseason. Horford is old also. I mean, he still plays well, but he's getting up there in age. So their 2 center players are questionable. But even when they were out last year, they still dominated teams, shooting threes, offense, defense. 2 of the best wing players, Tatum and Brown. I think Tatum is going to have a chip on his shoulder this year. The Olympics, he didn't get much playing time, kind of got made fun of. So I think he's going to come into the season and try to prove a point.
Do you think it bothered him that he didn't get Finals MVP?
It does, but I mean, Brown played good.
He was
so
amazing.
You can't argue with it. So if Tatum, I mean, it could be a competition between them. I know there's a narrative of the media trying to drive a wedge between them or make them be competitive against each other, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think Tatum is going to have a chip on his shoulder. And the East, it's going to be tougher, but it's not as tough as the West. But I don't see why they wouldn't make it back to the Eastern Finals either, unless there's some injury concerns.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to be honest. Last year, about midway through the season, I mean, they were on fire, but I remember saying I didn't believe in them, the Celtics. Like I said, look, they're putting wins together. They're clearly very good. I don't see toughness. I don't see the ability to close out. I don't see and I said, I don't know that I'm a believer in the Celtics. And then they hit the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they really hit the gas.
They answered all the questions.
Yeah, they did.
The problems that everyone was going against them for, they're not there anymore. They've done it. They've gone through. So I don't know. Like then everyone returned, and I think they're hungry still. I think some people were saying that they had an easy run to the finals, and that kind of probably irritates them too. So I could see
they had
them
an easier run to
Yeah,
the
there
finals
was
to say the
injuries.
Mavericks did.
Yeah. So I can
here's,
see.
Here's what's interesting. If your rankings are right, let's say we end up with a Celtics OKC final. I think the difference, it'll be a much more interesting final because I think when you looked at the Mavericks in the finals last year, that team looked like a broken down car that was just trying to keep it going I think they were tired.
Yeah.
I think they were out of gas. I mean, Luka was playing on 2 bad legs, all that kind of stuff. But you put them in the finals against an OKC, a team that can outrun them.
Yeah.
A team with faster pace, and I contend a team that can match them in terms of depth. That's the other thing nobody talks about Boston, depth.
Yeah.
They have great depth.
Yeah.
And that would be a really interesting final. So highlight again, run it down. What was your 10-1?
Yep. 10 was the Indiana Pacers. 9 was the Milwaukee Bucks. The Phoenix Suns were 8th. Sixers were the 7th. Minnesota Timberwolves 6th. Dallas Mavericks 5th. Denver Nuggets 4th. The Knicks 3rd. OKC 2nd. And the Boston Celtics number 1.
So there you have it, guys. Our definitive top 10 list as the NBA season starts tonight. What does your list look like? Whatever it is, jump into the comments and let us know your thoughts.